This is Chat Dragon, a talk show and actual play podcast about sci-fi, fantasy, and the world's most beloved game of make-believe, Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Jared, and I'm your host. I am a newspaper reporter by day and a dungeon master by night. I decided to start this podcast for purely selfish reasons, and that is to have a reason to talk to interesting people about interesting topics, all through the lens of D&D. Each episode, I talk to friends, family members, and tabletop role-playing creatives about this beloved hobby. The conversations are driven by dice, and the games driven by our imaginations. Hi everyone, this is Jared from the Chat Dragon Pod. I'm back again with my good friend Sam Hefty to discuss the D&D game we just played for the show's campaign, The Sidekick. Sam, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome. So Sam, how do you think it went?
I think it went well. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a really cool setup that you had. The preparation that went into it. I like how there were elements from previous weeks where different individuals kind of left me hanging in certain ways, and I had to pick up the pieces. And I thought that was just a really cool format and a really cool setup. And it was nice to, as I said earlier, I really love the theory elements of any game that I play. And a lot of that comes into, a lot of that manifests itself as like character building and or world building, and just being like, oh, this is like a cool concept. This could lead to all these possibilities. I love that. Let's run with it. But this was the exact opposite. This was, hey, everything's already set for you. Somebody's already played this character and got some wear and tear on him, and let's see what you can do with it. And I thought that was really creative, and I really enjoyed that element of the game. In terms of how it went, like, my point of view is always, or at least for now, it's always going to be like I could have done a lot better. My point of view is like I haven't played a lot of D&D, and I know a lot of other people have maybe played a lot, or they're they have much more experience with thespian roles or life or whatever skills than I do. So I can totally see a lot of other people taking it down a more political path or more theatrical path. For me, most of my experience is like strategy related, whether that be video game or Magic or that kind of tabletop. So my thing is more just like, oh, what am I going to do for combat? What am I going to do for getting in and out of difficult situations? It's a lot less based on charisma and politics and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think I could have probably played it better in terms of getting Marigold and Todd into a more wacky adventure, getting them to do crazier, cooler things. But still learning, and it's still fun to check it out.
I think part of the fun is just having a character, each person has their own spin and how they like and own style of play. So I think of the fun for me at least has been to kind of see how people differ in their approach, and to kind of see how Marigold changes with each guest. Before he would, first episode we had a little bit of backstory. We just knew he had kind of a funny name, and he kind of had a chip on his shoulder about it, and he was working for this guy. But then we, like, over time have learned that he's kind of failed improv comedian. He's kind of reckless and a trash talker, and all these things were established by different people. So it's kind of interesting to see how people put their mark or scars or whatever on the character. So I'm kind of interested though, Sam. You said you kind of are more of a strategic player. So when you are making your characters, you're making a character for a campaign. Do you think about story first, or do you think about how to like max out their stats, get the most out of the character in terms of their skills and their abilities?
I think it's a good question. I think for me, I naturally like gravitate to the first thing that you said, where whenever I look at any game, I tend to, I know there's a lot of people who look at like the flavor or the the story or the lore of the game first, and they're just like, I want to play, an elf, and I'm always going to play an elf, and I love elves, and that's cool. Like that's cool for those people that they know what they like. I tend to look at the like more like metagame strategic, like, hey, does my group have this? If not, I'll provide it. Or, hey, what if we get into this scenario? What can I do to help that? I think there's different archetypes that people fall into when looking at those kind of roles. So some people are like, I'm always going to be the martial melee fighter. I always want to wield a two-handed, weapon and smash face. And some people are like, I always want to be that mage character. And I think for every game I've ever probably played, I tend to come at it from a toolbox or toolkit approach, whether that be a MOBA or an MMO or a card game or a D&D. I'm just like, hey, what's a well-rounded character? I know when I talk to people about D&D, and I've expressed that before, people are like, oh, you should totally play a bard. That would be awesome. Bards can do everything, and you sound like you want to do everything, and that sounds perfect for you. And I'm just like, I don't see myself as a charismatic person. I don't think that I want to be singing. I don't think I want to be making charisma checks and be doing like different politics in a game. When I think of a toolbox kind of character, I think of the quote skill monkey kind of character, where it's just like I'd rather be a thief that has tools for every situation, or I'd rather be like a cleric that can call on like godly power to get us out. I think that's my thing, is like I don't like pigeonholing myself. I want to be able to always have an answer to a problem, even if it's not a great answer. I want to be able to say, oh, like we're stuck in a jail, I'll pick the lock. Oh, we're in a battle, I'll help I'll be able to take on an enemy. Oh, like one of my teammates needs help, I'll be able to help my teammate. I want to kind of Swiss Army knife it up, and that is my general approach to things. But to answer your question, I found it really interesting because one of the campaigns we did, I think it was our second campaign that we did together, I didn't want to take that metagaming approach, or the metagaming affected the lore. So I tried to make a quote perfect character, and I ended up having int as a dump stat. And then I went back and said, you know what? It makes a lot of sense to have this character just be really not dumb, but like new to the world. He doesn't have a knowledge base. And then I can role play him as like he's just been created. He's a warforged. He doesn't know what's going on in the world. He doesn't understand stuff. He's a cleric. He's just being created by science, but his int is so low, he can't understand science. So he actually thinks it's faith. He thinks science is just magic. And he lives in a world with magic to begin with. So that's not really that far of a stretch. And he's like not the brightest dude. And he kind of would end up playing like a Groot like character where he's really kind, he's really simple. And I just thought the concept of playing a Groot like character would be awesome. I've just been talking for a long time. So if you know me as a person, I talk a whole lot. So I was like, hey, it would be really cool to play a character who doesn't talk that much and maybe has a lot more wonder and confusion when they enter the world. And the result of that was horrible for that group, because the group really needed a leader. It really needed somebody to step forth and say, hey, let's make decisions this way, or let's be I'm the face of the party, I'll take care of this. And in the background, I was just, I'm Grooting it up, and that really didn't work. That's really good with maybe a group that has a dedicated, leader, and you can, if your group not to rip off Marvel too much, but if your group already has a Rocket and a Star Lord and everything, yeah, you can play a Groot. But sometimes you need to be that team leader, or you need to be the catalyst for change, and that character is just not a great outlet to be a catalyst for change.
I really liked that character when you played him, and just for the listener to know, the campaign he's talking about, it was a campaign in kind of this world, homebrew world, that I've used for a couple campaigns, where like a lot of really mundane things are kind of, or a lot of mundane things like Battle of the Bands, or say like your local postal service get kind of amped up with magic and conflict and kind of I don't know. It's kind of a silly world. So the concept of the campaign was that they're in a band. It's like a battle of bands that they're trying to win. And Sam's character, yeah, he was this he was like a machine man, right? And he doubled as the drum machine or the drummer for the band. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my I hadn't played much D&D up to that point, and so I was looking at different races and different classes, and the concept of Forge Cleric made a lot of sense to me. It fit that role that I was just describing, where it was just like, hey, if my party needs a tool, I can make that tool when we need it, and I can have divine intervention come in when we need it, and I can heal my teammates, but I can also kind of be like the tank because our group didn't have a tank. So I was like, oh, this is perfect, and this will work out. Um, but then when it came to creating like a more role play element, which, like I said, was always kind of secondary to me, I was like, oh, it makes a lot of sense that like maybe there was just a defective Warforged that got thrown off the line, but it still somehow was alive. And it was like, hey, I hammer things. I care about hammering. And I see somebody else hammering and I'm like, wow, and building a machine, and I'm like, wow, you're like a god, like you made a thing. I'm gonna worship you and I'm gonna hammer. And oh, you guys want me to be in a band? Well, I will hammer these drums. Like that's what I do. And he just said hammer, which was his name a bunch of times because like I said, he's a Groot like character. He has a really low int. So that was kind of where I was taking that, or trying to take it.
That was fun. Sam, I guess to kind of pivot from that topic, I think you had mentioned to me you're a well, we I know that you're a Magic the Gathering player, or we're a Magic the Gathering player. So, are you familiar with the D&D like Magic the Gathering crossover thing that's supposedly happening?
Yeah, I didn't play. I was really into Magic when I was younger. The Gathering, the card game. I thought the strategy and the look and the lore and everything of it was really cool. And recently been paying more attention to Magic, and they just came out with a D&D set. I believe it's called um, Adventures of Forgotten Realms or something to that style. But I do like that Wizards of the Coast is trying to branch out and add more things to Magic, and it makes a lot of sense for them to create, Strixhaven and Innistrad in the Magic the Gathering world, but then make those things exist in the D&D realm for people who want to play in an Innistrad setting, which is like Curse of Strahd, I assume, or in the Strixhaven setting. I think there's a Strixhaven campaign for D&D, and now they're coming out with a D&D based Magic the Gathering expansion. So
I'm not really much of a Magic player, but do you see crossover being something that would draw you back to the game to get back into it, or do you think that it's kind of a chapter in your life that's closed, been or something?
yeah, I think I think it could definitely work. I think on some level, I think Wizards of the Coast with both D&D and Magic has been playing a lot of fan service lately, but I'm not really against that. I think both Magic and D&D are games that benefit heavily from expanding their player base. So to make a Rick and Morty themed D&D campaign, you're going to pull in Rick and Morty fans, and that could lead them to being really interested in the game. Same way with creating D&D Magic related stuff or Magic related D&D stuff. Like, there's definitely a market for it, and there's people. When you go to any tabletop shop, you have individuals. I mean, I've just been to in the area I live in. There's like at least 7 or 10 different tabletop stores. So when I've been to different ones just to see what they're like, some of them you go to and there's like a ton of D&D players and they're buying really expensive dice and they're talking about Tiamat and all sorts of things, and I'm just like, wow, that's cool. I've never seen this before. And then I've been to other stores and there's a ton of men and women and other people playing Magic. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I am not familiar with this, but it's cool to see those communities, and you see at the Magic stores, you see the D&D books, and at the D&D books, you see the Magic cards sold too. So I think, like I said, both games benefit from an increased player base and just having more friends play. So if you have a couple friends that play Magic and you want to introduce them to D&D, I'm sure that's a possibility as long as people are open-minded, and vice versa. So yeah.
But I guess, I mean, do you think D&D being in Magic is something that would it get you back into to sit, like, would it get you to start buying cards again and build a deck out and start playing?
Gotcha. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to friends, your friend group. If I had friends that were really into Magic right now, I think I would care more about that than the D&D element, and I would be buying or I would buy singles of cards or whatever to play uh, with them. I don't think I would really be too influenced by the cross promotion. Um, I do think D&D is a lot more accessible, which I don't think a lot of people realize that. But the fact of the matter is, it's free. It's like, do you have a dice roller and some friends and some time to talk about stuff? Then you can play D&D, and that's cool. Now with Magic, you have to either buy the cards or you have to proxy cards, and some people are cool with people proxying cards. In case people listening aren't familiar, it's where you print your own cards. Um, and some people are really cool about that because some cards are incredibly expensive. Um, I think that's been happening in the Warhammer universe too. I've never played Warhammer. I always thought the figurines are cool, but recently I've heard about people buying 3D printers and printing their own Warhammer collectibles. And I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me is like, hey, the more the merrier, the more people involved, the more fun you're gonna have. And the other part of me is like, uh, it's not official. How much does that matter? I don't know. I don't know how much it matters to me.
I mean, I played Magic for like a few months when I was in middle school, but proxy card thing, that sounds kind of strange to me because it seems like sort of or the appeal would be to buy some booster packs and make a deck out of whatever you get, and that if you have crap cards, you have crap cards, and if you have sweet cards, you have sweet cards. It's like all about, to me, it seems like it'd all be about strategy and how you build out the deck. So if people are just letting you print things off and say it's okay, that I don't know. It seems strange to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm coming at it from the wrong perspective, but I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know.
what you're saying makes perfect sense. There's just an inherent economy to Magic because it's lasted for so long that there's this weird supply and demand where people who want to run official tournaments want you to have actual cards. Um, and and I get that. That makes sense. But then people who want to play competitive decks, for example, if you and I went to, Walmart or Target or Myers or some other store, and we bought a couple of packs of cards, and then we use those cards to make a deck, uh, it would or would not run a certain way. Um, but there's more competitive formats. I think if I could just go back and explain a little bit more about Magic, there's actually a really popular format that's been in existence for a few years now called Commander, and it's a four-player game. And when I played Magic, I don't think Commander was really in existence, and it definitely wasn't recognized by Wizards of the Coast. But it was a one v one kind of game, and now apparently Commander is a very popular format, and it's a four-player game, and that's really funny because one of their descriptions of Commander is like it's less about winning and losing and more about the collective experience and like making a story. And you have huge decks compared to normal, and you have huge life totals, so the games can last hours. And I think that is a place where um, D&D and Magic can overlap, where when you get together with friends for D&D, some people are very much about the strategy and the campaigns and whatnot, but other people just want to tell a really cool story with their friends, and that's what they do through the outlet of D&D. And some people play a four-player commander game, and they tell kind of their own story through their cards and what the politics that goes between the four players. Like, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to beat all three of you. Someone else is like, hey, if you help me do this and stop him or her or them, I will then help you out next turn. And like, that's a really cool thing. And some people want to play a more competitive version of Commander. And the issue with playing competitive Commander is those cards that I talked about that were printed 20 years ago are now worth, hundreds of dollars. I mean, there's a particular card that's, very strong and used in a lot of different competitive Commander decks, and it's $9,000. And
Is that like a Black Lotus or something?
oh no, but that's not even the Black Lotus. That's the best part. It's like I think Black Lotus is banned. I think it's really old and it's really expensive, but it's banned. But like Time Twister, which is $9,000, isn't banned. So if you're going to make a competitive commander deck and you run the color blue, you're gonna want Time Twister in it, and Time Twister is $9,000. So I've looked for regular commander decks, and there's lots of resources that tell you, hey, if you can build a commander deck for $25. You can build one for under $1. It's 100 cards for under $1. But there's also competitive decks that are $19,000 or $13,000, and that is insane for a lot of people to spend that much money on a hobby, let alone a card game. And that's, I think, where the proxying comes in, where maybe at an official tournament, people want to see real time twisters hitting the table. But when you're just with your friends, if you want to play a more competitive, more fast-paced game, you guys probably just proxy the cards for each other, and all of a sudden you can spend $100 and the four of you can have very tournament, high strategy, high power decks for $100 instead of $40,000 or $50,000 like at one table. So I understand why people proxy, and I think in that setting, people have no problem with it. They're very egalitarian. They want to play you and not, quote, play your wallet. So I get that. But that's just the inherent inequality of Magic, is when you buy that pack at Walmart or Target, it's a $4 pack of cards, and it might be worth $2. It might be worth $4. It's not worth $19,000. So, and that's kind of where D&D kind of stands out. And that's why I said D&D, I think, is a little bit more accessible for most people. You just need friends and an imagination, and you're good to go.
I think with D&D, you can kind of make it as expensive or inexpensive as you want. I mean, the base rules are free online, and all you would really need is a pair of dice and your imagination. But then, the argument I used to make against like video games that I kind of got out of probably 10, 15 years ago was that it was too expensive. But then I find myself probably spending more money on board games and D&D crap that probably get less use than I would out of a video game. A board game can cost $50 to $100, and you might play it twice. Video game might cost you $70. You play it for, I don't know, 16 hours, 20 hours, whatever, forever. If it's like a Morrowind or a Grand Theft Auto 5 or something, not a Morrowind, Skyrim or Grand Theft Auto 5, something they keep re-releasing and giving people a reason to keep buying it. But where's I going with this? Well, like Magic, it was another one of those things where I was like, I kind of felt turned off by the fact that it was like a thing you had to keep putting money into the machine basically to play it. You had to keep buying cards. Cards would be banned or no longer allowed, and which I guess made games like Keyforge seem kind of interesting to me, because it was like you just bought the deck and then you were good to go. Or which was also, I think, what's that guy's name, Richard Garfield or something, the guy who started Magic. It's another of his games, I think.
Yes, I think he created both. I think different people approach different hobbies from different angles. I think, at points I've I've wanted to play board games, but I haven't always had friends interested in playing a tabletop, so I've avoided those. But then I've had friends want to play games online, and we've lived in different states, so I'm like, yeah, sure. And there's interestingly quite a few free to play games that are high graphic quality, high um, interactivity and skill and whatnot that you can get hours of fun out of for free, and they have like cash stores or for microtransactions and whatnot, which some people are very against microtransactions, and that makes sense if you're paying $60 to $70 for a game and then you're also buying extra microtransactions on top of it. You're like that is ridiculous. But if you play a game for free and maybe you bought one skin for a character or something, and I mean you see that with some of the very popular games, especially with younger crowds, middle school or teenage. A lot of the games that they're playing are free to play games. You don't have to steal your mom's credit card to play them. And then with Magic, like I said, some people who play within their friend groups and want to play high-powered decks, they proxy. But if you're not proxying and you want to play real cards, like I've never proxied, but I've always played on a budget. But the budget cards I used to do, like I used to, when we were in high school, I used to go to the comic book shop, take you sometimes, we would get comics, but sometimes I'd buy cards for 10 cents a card, and I would buy 4 of those, and then all of a sudden the deck I'm running is more consistent than, the friend of ours who buys a pack at Target and just throws in whatever matches. But, like I said, with some of those expensive cards, Magic cards strangely have appreciated over time. So if people are interested in getting into Magic, some of the cards you buy now, regardless of the price that they are, they're going to go up. And it's kind of weird to view a hobby like that, right? So some people are like, oh, my hobby is D&D, and I do cool stories with my friends and we have a good time and that's it. And other people are like, my hobby is Magic, and I've bought these really expensive cards and I use them to play against other people, and I'm still playing with my friends, but 2 years down the road, like I've made money on the cards that I've bought because they've appreciated over time. Everybody has different angles, and I just think that's a kind of a weird angle, but it's also a really interesting angle. Like, who knew card appreciation exists? And during the COVID pandemic, we've seen a huge spike in Pokemon cards. Obviously, we've like people our age were around when they first came out, but who knew that they would be selling for millions of dollars today?
I once there was some guy who was I remember when first time I heard about like the Robinhood app. It was probably I don't know how many years ago. It was before all the it was like in the news all the time, and
With
people were like
GameStop and yeah,
before GameStop, and people like committing suicide over
yeah,
bad trades. And so someone told me about Robinhood, and he was saying, but if I was like, well, you got any good stock tips? I'm gonna download this app. Is there any stocks I should be looking at to buy? He's like, if you really want to make money, you should buy one of those boxes of all the booster sets, of the brand new Magic cards when they come out, and just buy the big box that has like all the um, booster packs or whatever they're called, blister packs. And he's like, just hold on to it for like 5 years, and then put it up on eBay, and you'll probably get a lot of money for it. And like, that's a really good idea. And then I forgot up until this conversation.
yeah. And what's crazy, and that's one of the funny things about this is like, um, I've played multiple games over many years, and I've had very different, very strange, specific interests over many years. And it's always funny that as soon as you like dive into one of those interests, you always find weird things out about them. So for example, I haven't been interested in Magic for many years. I played in high school, um, you remember, and then I didn't play for years, and then I randomly went to some tournaments post college and won somehow, and then I stopped playing again. And then my brother-in-law was like, hey, we should play Magic like 2 weeks ago, and so I like started putting some attention to it again. But you just mentioned the booster pack thing, and this is like a completely recent development, but in the last week or two, there's been a huge thing about an Amazon scam where people who buy Magic cards off Amazon in those boxes that you're talking about will open the boxes up. They look like they're completely packaged and wrapped by wizards, but when you open the package up, each one of the packs is opened and all of the cards have been tampered with. And the pack that they bought for hundreds of dollars that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're lucky is actually worth like $20 because everything has been cut open, everything has been tampered with, everything has been changed and swapped out. And it's happened to quite a few people. And so that's, like I said, it's just really weird. It's like, how does that happen? Like you told me that a couple years ago somebody gave you that advice, and then you didn't think to mention it until now, and it just so happened that you mentioned it now, and I'm like, hey, this just happened last week where like all these people are getting ripped off by Amazon. They're buying boxes, but their boxes are all tampered with. So
That's weird.
It is weird that like whenever you get interested in a community, you start doing research, you're just like, whoa, this really weird thing happens in this community. Like people are tampering with boxes.
It's not Magic, but there was one unconventional investment that I made um, after kind of reading about things that appreciate over time, and it was Lego, like a Lego. Apparently,
Oh, wow.
if you get the right sets, because there's
Yeah.
such a huge collector's market for it. Typically, they're like sets are in the hundreds of dollars. So maybe like the Voltron set, you just hold on to it in the box for however long. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna test this out, and I ended up buying like Lego Yellow Submarine. I felt like it was like a low barrier to entry. It was like maybe a $30 to $40 set, but I was like, oh, it's a no, there's a big market for Beatles. People love the Beatles, so I figure, it's not $100 set, but probably at some point it'll be a collector's item. So never got into the card collecting thing, but I have a Beatles set somewhere in storage, and I think last time I checked it was worth $30 more than what I bought it for. So like made some
That
profit.
is crazy. Uh, it's crazy because you just mentioned Voltron Legos and you blew my mind. I never knew that could exist, and I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. Let me look that up. I
It
looked it
looks
up
awesome.
and it's like $500. There's like only one left in stock at this one place, and I'm just like, holy crap. Like, yeah, you're right. Like somebody bought this for $39.99 and now it's worth $500. I have some Magic cards I bought in high school for like $5 a piece. That was a lot for me back then, like to buy a $5 card. I recently found out that $5 card is worth $150 right now per card, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I hope I still have those. But yeah, collecting
I can,
is weird. Like I've never been a big collector of things in general. I've always been more utility. Like c- can I play this game? No. Well, then I don't care. Like, why would I care? And then, of course, we heard about the Mario N64 unopened package going for like millions of dollars just a couple days ago. So,
I actually looking up the Beatles now. I'm wondering what's this averaging at right now?
oh yeah,
Value, it's I think new and sealed, $145. I bought it for, I guess retail was 60. So
yeah.
it's making money. But I can tell you that Voltron thing, I think it wasn't like a $50 set.
Oh, gotcha.
It was like a $200 set because each
Yeah.
line is its own thing, and then they all combine. It looked cool. They used to have it at Barnes and Noble, and I was always tempted to buy it, but I get I make a reporter salary, so it didn't seem like like something I could buy at the moment. So
Yeah. And there's, you mentioned, Robin Hood and paying attention to Robin Hood before GME was a thing or like a well-known thing. But I mean, I think Reddit has quite a few finance related things where if people are really interested in collecting and I mean, I've never really have been, but I guess never too late to be interested in it, but maybe one day I will. But there's all sorts of finance related things, and there's a magic finance thing for guys, or for I keep saying guys. I need to ungender my speech, but for people who want to um, get into like the collecting element of magic, and it's just like, hey, you guys should. There's a lot of speculation, and like, hey, you guys should buy this or don't buy that. Um, and obviously the whole Amazon scandal with the open packs and stuff. And is it Amazon doing it? Is it a disgruntled worker? Is it fake? All sorts of things are coming up, but there are quite a few collectors related um, markets, I guess, where people are looking at the finance of magic cards, and it's just like, wait, what? Like, how is that a thing? But no, people are looking at like, and it's not just a black diamond, a black lotus, or a mox diamond or whatever. It's like it's more than that. Like people are looking to make money with collections and stuff. I read an article not too long ago talking about how like during the COVID pandemic, like the cost of Pokemon cards somehow shot up, and there's people now with multi-million-dollar Pokemon sets, and they're never gonna sell them because they're true collectors at heart. That they've been collecting since they came out in 8 or 9, and they've always collected, and they didn't do it for the money. They did it for the love of collecting. And now they have a $17 million Pokemon card collection that they're not going to part with because they love their cards, and that's why they have them. I didn't think that applied to D&D until this last week, where I went to a tabletop store and I saw a person say, "Hey, what's that set of black dice? That looks really awesome." The person behind the counter said, "Hey, that's hematite dice. They're $200 for this set of hematite dice," and the guy bought it. And then his girlfriend was like, "Is that Tiamat? And how much is that?" It was $60. I'm buying Tiamat. I need to have Tiamat. I must have her. And I'm just like, oh wow, I didn't realize people spent money on D&D as well. I thought it was like my point of view was like, I'm not even rolling real dice. I'm just rolling on D&D Beyond. So
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, it's just there's levels you can go. It could be nothing. I mean, the SRD rules are free, and if you have D&D Beyond
yeah,
and you don't mind playing a limited character and not having all the options, then it's free. But if I have a lot of different types of dice, and some of them were dice I bought off Wish.com, and I got like pack of 10 for like $10, and then I have a set of dice that actually did cost me $10 just for that one set.
yeah,
Um, so I think I wanted to say Rapper Logic. I don't know if you know that
yeah.
rapper.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He bought like I guess a $220,000 Pokemon card or something.
I
Hit the
can
news
see it.
recently.
That article I read about it was about a guy named like quote Mr. Pokemon or something, or King Pokemon. I don't know. It's kind of weird when a bunch of little kids see you at a Pokemon convention and call you King Pokemon or something, but whatever. He loves it. He like had like Steve Aoki, and I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, but other famous musicians like, buying cards. I remember hearing about different Twitch streamers, not really, streaming games, but just streaming themselves cutting Pokemon cards. I guess that's kind of
Baller.
expensive. Yeah, exactly. I don't I don't want to drop lingo and age myself as a lame old guy or anything. But,
Like I just did.
yeah, exactly. I'm like,
It's fine.
excuse me. I'm pretty sure kids say swag these days. No, but that's probably not even right. But my point was that I've always found it weird because when I play games, I'm always about the gameplay itself, like you said earlier, about like, are you more about the story? Are you more about metagaming? Or are you about like the strategy behind it? And I'm always like, hey, I want to play games with other people. I want to strategize with other people, and I want us to, maybe go against something or someone. So obviously MOBAs and MMOs fit that category, but so do um, team-based Magic the Gathering. Not that I've really played a whole lot of it, but it exists. And D&D is kind of like that, depending on your group. Some people are like they have kind of a antagonistic relationship with their DM. We haven't had that because we've been all pretty chill. But some people are like, hey, I want to beat my DM this week because my DM just keeps killing my characters left or right. And I'm like, how do we beat this guy? And then other people are like, I love being like having the whole table against me and like I'm throwing monsters left and right at them. And that's cool that that D&D has that variance to it where you can kind of play together as a group and have fun, and you can kind of go against each other and have fun and backstab and plot. And if that's your thing, that's not necessarily my thing, but I'm sure as long as you find a group to do that with, you're golden.
Well, Sam, before I let you go this evening, we do just like a random kind of like 3 random questions at the end of the interview. If you have your D20 handy, I'll have you roll it, and I will give you the question that it comes up with.
Right.
Just for the listener, I have a random dice table with a series of questions on it. So, whenever you're ready.
Okay. I have 3 D20 sitting in front of me.
So just let me know what the first one is. We'll do it one by one.
2.
2. Okay. So the question is, what is the last thing you looked up on the internet?
I looked up. Do you mean just like in Google?
Anything. Yeah, I guess it could be.
The last thing
Google.
I looked up was, as mentioned earlier, Voltron Lego. And before that, it was let me go through my tabs. It looks like it was. Sorry, I'm just trying to close all the D&D related tabs. It was Martin Shkreli Wu-Tang Clan album sales. Like I said, I'm not a finance guy, but I know that happened today, and I'm a fan of Wu-Tang, and I hate Martin Shkreli for his terrible treatment of people and his appropriation of rap items. So,
What was it? I haven't read the story. So he sold it?
I didn't. The story didn't actually pull up because I don't have a subscription with that magazine.
Oh, the headline I'm reading, it says. Headline I'm reading says United States sells one-of-a-kind Wu-Tang Clan album seized from Martin Shkreli.
Nice.
So. Interesting.
Yeah.
I have to read that. That guy was a good person.
No.
I don't usually like to judge people in public forums.
Yeah,
but
like
I think it's fair to say everybody can agree, Democrat or Republican or Libertarian and Green Party, whatever you are, that Martin Shkreli or however you say his name wasn't a great individual.
I don't know if I have either. I just I worked in the pharmacy business and saw a lot of people who went without medications, and he made it hard for people to get medications. And I think no matter who you are, when you're trying to help a little grandma with her life-changing medication, you're probably not going to be too happy at the people who make that life-changing medication worth more than what she spends on food in a year. So
I think he had acquired the rights to like a malaria medication. I don't remember, but it had like an off-label use that people used it for, and he just upped the price, I think, and then he have like a special program for people who can't afford it. I'm not sure. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's just been so much news in the last couple of years. My memory is not what it used to be, so I have to like look it up again. But it looks like he did stuff with companies that took care of different types of drugs. So
this HuffPost
Yeah,
article says it was Daraprim, and it's used for malaria and
yeah,
AIDS and some other stuff.
yeah.
So,
It's an anti-parasitic. So, and it's also used to treat AIDS related issues. Um, and it had to do with like patent law, I guess. So patent expired, and he took care of it, picked it up, and raised the price. But I mean, that's what's happened in the last couple of years is like the price of a lot of drugs has skyrocketed. Obviously, we've heard about the person who did that with the EpiPen, the epinephrine that people need to survive
yeah, and,
allergic reactions, and then with insulin as well.
yeah, that's probably one of the worst ones right
Yeah,
there.
even I don't work uh, in pharmacy related um, jobs anymore, but when I started to when I finished, the price of insulin went up by like 300%. So at least a couple of them. But yeah, it's rough. But I would rather I'd rather my answer be Voltron Lego for the last thing I looked up. And it is officially the last thing I looked up. So
Right. Can I have you roll again then?
yep, and we're getting a 9.
Nine. Hot dogs or hamburgers?
That's a tough one.
I don't know. Are you vegan now? Maybe. I don't know.
No, my wife
Okay.
is vegetarian. So we have had, veggie dogs, which are surprisingly not that different from a regular hot dog, depending on what brand you get. Because with a lot of hot dogs, you don't really know what's in there, and with a veggie dog, you still don't know what's in there. So it all works out.
That's
But
fair.
in terms of, I guess for me, I've always been more of a burger over a hot dog kind of guy. You can kind of make it the way you want to make it. You can add a lot more stuff to it, and if you don't, obviously beef is what we're familiar with as for burgers. But if you don't eat beef, you want turkey. That's an option. We were just at a place that sells a salmon burger. I don't really know what that. I like salmon, but I've never had a salmon burger, and I don't know if I want to. And then we've had obviously the plant-based burgers, not so much the veggie burgers, but the Impossible burgers and Beyond Beef and stuff like that. And
I
yeah,
I don't really care for the Beyond or whatever. I don't know which one I had, but I remember buying it because I was curious. You
yeah.
see it advertised, Burger King advertised. Not, I didn't buy Burger King's, but
I think theirs is Impossible, and then you can buy
but
both
I'm
in stores actually, like regular.
and I was just curious. I wanted to know how close it was to the real thing, and I tried it, and I feel like I was like it tastes like a burger I would buy at school. Like if I was in school still,
Gotcha.
like a high school or middle school, like just kind of really
Not even like a college dorm burger.
maybe it just wasn't good. I was like, this doesn't really taste that great. I mean, I guess it passes, but it passes for like very low quality burger, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that was your take if you've tried it, but I like
I
burgers,
I
and
have, yeah.
I'm not like a insane carnivore or anything like that. I'm open to trying veggie products, and that was not one I particularly liked. So
Gotcha. Yeah, there's quite a few on the market now. I've had them all lately, or more recently, I guess, better term for it. But yeah, I think I like burgers more, um, just because there's a lot of different kinds and there's a lot of things you can do to them. So if you have dietary restrictions, you can make it work. And there's not really a lot you can do to a hot dog. I know they Chicago style it, um, but yeah, hot dogs are kind of simple, kind of plain. So
can you get Kogel's hot dogs in Cleveland?
I could order them, I'm sure. Um, I think when my family lived in North Carolina, we knew people from Michigan who wanted Kogels, so we would get those for them. But you can order. I think you can I think Kohl's delivers anywhere now. Haven't had one in a long time. But I always I just have so many weird hamburger stories because like for some reason like I actually like the Impossible and the Beyond Burgers, and I know meat eaters out there are like, how could you? How dare you? In the Greta Thunberg voice. But I'm really unlucky when it comes to burgers because whenever I get a burger from like another store, it's or like a fast food chain or whatever, there's a bone chip in it. I'm just like, and it hurts my teeth. Like, why is there a bone chip in my burger? Similarly, like I think it's really funny. I don't know if it's currently this way, and I don't want you to lose your sponsorship with McDonald's. Just kidding. I know that doesn't exist for you, but they on their wrappers they write 100% ground beef TM, and it's not an indication of what their burger is. It's because they own a company called 100% ground beef that prints their packaging, and so their packaging can say 100% ground beef on it when the burger is not as advertised. But they could argue that's not what we were advertising. That's just the name of our packaging company.
Interesting.
It's pretty weird. It reminds me of Idiocracy and the Welcome to Costco. I love you, but um, but yeah. So that's weird. And I don't know if you've had Impossible Burgers. They sell them at Burger King, but if you buy them at your own or at a store or you order them online, the claim to fame for Impossible is that they use heme, which is this iron smelling and tasting, like heme itself smells like iron and tastes like iron, and that's what you taste in the meat because it's quote bloody. But they found a plant-based heme to use in their plant-based burgers, and that's why Impossible Burgers bleed when you cook them. My wife is vegetarian. She's always been vegetarian her entire life. So I made her an Impossible Burger, and she was surprised by it. She was weirded out by it, but she liked it, kind of. But then she made one herself, and she was terrified because she saw the burger bleeding, and she's never cooked anything that's bled before. And I was like, look, it's not real. It's probably like red dye or beet juice. It's not really bleeding, but it was a traumatic experience for her, and I thought that was hilarious. And I filmed it, and it's somewhere out there on the cloud.
Nice. I'll have to get the Impossible. I don't know which one I tried. I just remember being like it passes, but it's not like a great substitute. It wasn't a great substitute in my book.
Yeah.
Whatever the one I tried. And I think a younger me would be appalled by the idea of like fake meat. No, it's like part of me is like if you want meat, then just eat meat, and if you don't want meat, then don't eat it.
Yeah.
And some of these substitutes I think are kind of like I don't know. It just seems kind of weird, but there's like a curiosity, and I definitely gave the Impossible or something a try.
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy carnivore. I know that probably made me sound like I was earlier, but I actually have probably we eat a number. We eat plant-based once in a while. Every like your family is Indian, and that's like one of our favorite types of food to cook is Indian food, and
gotcha.
we love eating Indian food and going out to get Indian food, and there are meat dishes, but a lot of the best dishes aren't meat dishes. I mean, obviously, that's generalizing the culture.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
all sorts of different types of cuisines in India.
Yeah.
So
I think India is a big place, and therefore you have places in India where the best dish is considered to be a meat dish, and there's other places where they don't eat meat at all. My family, half of my family, the other half is not Indian, but the half that I grew up with was, and I think it's funny when people say they like Indian food because I'm glad that they're culturally open-minded. But as a kid who had to eat it every day, I'm like, I hate Indian food. I never want anything else, Mexican, Italian, like Thai food, sushi, give me anything else. Just because I just don't want it anymore. But I uh, like I said, she's vegetarian, and so a lot of times we eat a vegetarian kind of diet. But um, so I'm not against the plant-based stuff, but at the end of the day, for me, food tends to be more of a sustenance rather than a pleasure. So when I tell people like, yeah, I've had Impossible and Beyond, and it's perfectly fine, it's perfectly passable to me, they're just like, well, I can't believe you would do that. And I'm like, I just shove the burger in my mouth and I go back to rolling dice or something. Like I don't spend that much time worrying about the food. Like, you know, so I get like my opinion is biased, right? If you were to ask me, um, what my favorite game of this or my favorite strategy or something like that, or my favorite theories on blah 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 or rap album or whatever, then yeah, I could give you I could tell you something I care about. But when it comes to food, I'm just like, give me pizza, give me sushi, give me Mexican food. Otherwise, I don't. I'm just eating to survive, really. So
I get that. That was me up until like a year ago, and then when I had to start cooking for other people, they're like, "You can't just
uh,
serve us boiled chicken."
yeah,
'Cause I
yeah,
would just make a bunch of chicken in a crock pot.
yeah.
I was like, "Well,"
You're
they're like, "We want different food," and I was like, "Well, yeah, this today we'll put ranch dressing on it. Tomorrow we'll put cheese on it,
It's
and
just like, look,
roll it up in a tortilla." And
you've been a very
you,
healthy guy, so I imagine you were like, today we're having chicken, broccoli, and brown rice. And
no,
tomorrow we're
not like
having
that.
chicken, broccoli, and brown rice, and the day after we're having chicken, broccoli, and brown rice. And one day it'll have salsa on it, and one day it'll have soy sauce on it, and one day it'll have some curry with it, and that's just how
Well,
it goes.
my thing for a lot of years was just what can I make in bulk? You know, I don't want to have to sit. I don't want to have to make decisions every day on what I'm going to eat,
Yeah,
and that's not a part of my life anymore. Now it's like every meal has to be different every day, and I like cooking. I like cooking good food, but I just don't want to. I would rather have like an elaborate cooking day, like once or twice a week, and then the rest of the week is just like leftovers or just like simple meals. But some people wanted to go to Flavor Town, and some people don't.
yeah, that
I
is
don't know.
true.
So lately, it's like we have a bunch of cookbooks, but lately they take a lot of all the recipes take forever. So lately, it's just looking up quick Googling like quick meals, because I don't
Yeah,
want to spend a lot of time cooking since I have to work so much. So,
right.
all right, last question, Sam. Go ahead and roll your dice.
5. Boy, these rolls.
All right, what scene in a movie always gives you goosebumps when you see it?
Goosebumps. Ah, that's a tough one. Um, I
The
am.
300. This is Sparta. No, just
Oh
joking.
man, dude, we can go off on 300. I don't want to make your podcast political, but I was so pumped for that. I loved Sin City. It was the same, it was going to be Frank Miller based, and I was so excited to see 300 when it came out, and I saw it in IMAX and everything, and I had this strange feeling, and I hated it, and I had this strange feeling it was political, and then I found out it wasn't really based on the Battle of Thermopylae. Like, it was based on a graphic novel based on the Battle of Thermopylae, but that's not true. It was based on a graphic novel which was based on a propaganda-esque war movie that came out in like the 30s or 40s or 50s or something. Um, that was heavily politically influenced. That was based on about Thermopylae. So I was like, hey, these political views coming through in this movie that I did not sign up for, they're actually like, I told everybody about it, and they're like, what are you talking about, man? It was just cool action. Did you see all the abs? They were throwing spears, and I was like, dude, that's not the point. Like, they said things that are weird for 2006 or 7, the political climate back then, and it turns out they were weird for a reason. Anyway, sorry about that long rant. You can cut that all out. In terms of scenes that give me goosebumps, I obviously like the action-packed ones, like, but those don't give me goosebumps, right? Like, yeah, it's really cool when you spoilers see like Avengers and you see the Avengers assemble scene where like they finally assemble to fight Thanos at the very end. Like that's really cool, for example. Or if you're watching My Hero Academia or something, you see that final uh, United States of Smash. That's awesome. Those are cool scenes. But I think for me, the scenes that always get me are the psychology based ones. Maybe that's just because I've always liked psychology and that's the field I'm trying to um, study about a lot right now and work on as my career. But I think the scenes that affect me more or give me goosebumps are the scenes that are kind of psychologically driven. Um, there's a scene in Forrest Gump, I think, where he realizes he has a kid. I think that kid is Haley Joel Osment. And but then he like it's like the first time in the movie that he addresses that he has some learning disability, and he's just like, is this kid like me? Because he's like concerned about the kid's psychology. Or there's a TV show. I really love the show Atlanta. It's a great show. There's another show called Dave about a guy who's a rapper in real life, and it's kind of like a parody of his. It's not a full parody, but it's like a loosely based on his life story, and it stars his actual hype man as his actual best friend in the show, who is his actual best friend in real life, but he experiences bipolar disorder, and there's an episode about bipolar disorder in a way that is not shown in other facets and outlets of media. It's a lot less stigmatized and it's a lot more like raw and emotional, and that kind of thing gives me more goosebumps because I think there's a lot of stigma that most people in the world face that we don't realize they face. And I think a lot of people in past generations have said, mental status or even the word mental disorder is stigmatizing in itself. But a lot of people are like, oh, that's weakness, or oh, I don't have that, denial. Hey, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to face that. Like, if you have problems, just drink a lot and you'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. I think that's how old generations tried to handle mental health. And I think today, we're a lot more honest about it. And I think portrayal in the media about mental health has been horrific, just like portrayal of race and plenty of other things has been. But I think lately we've been trying to make media that portrays mental health in a different light, that tries to help destigmatize it, that tries to help reach people who need or want help or have family members that they want to help. So those are the kind of scenes that give me goosebumps, are the scenes that are like, hey, I'm acknowledging something I've never acknowledged before, or hey, I'm concerned about the safety of another person, or hey, I don't fit in. Why don't I fit in? Why do I feel this way? Those are the scenes that kind of get me more than the Avengers Assemble scenes.
The only reason I brought up 300 originally is I for some reason I felt like we went and saw that movie together. Like I thought you went and saw it with me and my dad for some reason. Maybe I'm wrong.
I didn't. Interestingly, I would have enjoyed it. I saw quite a few films with you and your dad that were great.
But I do remember you having a vitriolic response to it, or at least talking about it, and so I thought it'd be funny to bring up.
Yeah, I haven't met. I mean, I'm not going to say I know a lot of people, but I don't know that many people who didn't like it. Most people I know are like, that movie was awesome. Did you see him kick the guy in the well? I wish I could kick the guy in the well. Just like, yeah, no, like I thought it was really weird that, our country was in the middle of a war and people were like, don't talk to the senators. And then I watch a movie and they're like, who cares what the Senate says? We're going to war anyway. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm kind of weird about hearing that. Always tough,
Yeah, I think I was when I being high school kid seeing it, I was like, this is cool. And then I got to college and you instantly realize this is like the anthem for every drunk frat boy who's about to do like a like
It is the
uh,
keg stand.
leg stand. They're like, "This is Sparta," and then all his friends lift him up, and he, you know,
Yeah.
does something ridiculous, and then tries to fight everybody afterwards. So, so I was like, oh man, this movie is kind of lame now. And now when I do watch it, I'm like, I I'm I'm sorry, Zack Snyder, if you're a future fan of this podcast, but I do not care for any of your movies. I think they're over stylized garbage. Just taking a an opinion here on his movies. No offense to him. He seems like a great guy. I know he adopts a lot of kids and um does like
I
some
agree.
charity and stuff, but that movie is that wasn't when I
Hey,
see it now.
you can like a person and not like their art, and you can love a person's art and not like who they are. And I don't, I don't think that's very controversial. I'm sure some people do, but I don't know too many Zack Snyder films. I think I've somehow missed a bunch. So I'm not,
That's fair.
I'm not on his bandwagon, and I'm not on his hate train. So I just know I thought Sin City was really cool. We did see that one together in the theater,
Yeah.
and that was hilarious because the theater was packed and everybody laughed. It was a theater in Flint too, so everybody was laughing at every ridiculous thing that happened. And I thought that was incredibly graphic, and I think it is an incredibly graphic movie. But I was also a high schooler, so yeah.
The other day I was ranting to Stephanie about Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League.
Mhm.
I was like it's unwatchable. I couldn't even finish it. I was ranting to her about a separate rant. I had a different friend about the movie, and my whole complaint. I mean, it was this. This is a big convoluted thing at this point because this is the third rant I'm about to go on about this movie.
Mhm.
But my whole complaint was like I couldn't get through it because he edited the movie in a way that he formatted the movie to be shown on an IMAX screen,
Mm.
even though there was never any intention of it ever getting a theatrical release on IMAX. He, for whatever reason, became obsessed with this format. So when you look at this, so when you watch the movie, it's like when back in the day when you had the old tube TVs, the square TVs, and you
Yeah.
watched a widescreen VHS, and they just cut off there'd be black bars
Oh
on the
yeah, that's
bottom.
right. Yeah.
Well, on his version, it's like it's exclusive on HBO Max. There's black bars to the left and to the right of the picture,
Oh.
and so I'm like, you're losing you're losing inches of your shot because he formatted it to be like this huge vertical up and down screen, and I was like, it just looks ridiculous. Everybody has a widescreen TV now, like just format it for that. Nobody ever was expecting this to come out in the first place, and then you were lucky you even got this opportunity, and
Yeah.
you formatted it for a screen that not like barely any cities have IMAX. You have to go to like a big city to go see it, or go to like a museum. So you're just like it's like niche upon niche upon niche, and I was like, this movie is just. I was like, I can't watch this. This is just dumb. It's 4 hours. I can't look at the screen for that long. I knew it was a bad movie when like with 30 minutes in, I'm instantly like Googling better movies to watch at that
Wow.
moment. So
I have
and
a I feel like I haven't seen this movie, but I feel like I know exactly which movie you're talking about.
I know this is probably controversial because there's a lot of DC fanboys and Zack Snyder
Mhm.
fanboys out there, but I'm not I wasn't a fan of that movie at
Gotcha.
all. I wasn't a fan of it, the Whedon cut, and I'm not a fan of the Snyder cut. And
I don't know how controversial that is. I think I've heard a lot of, maybe it's just my existence on the internet uh has pointed me down that route that says, hey, like a lot of people hate the Justice League and a lot of people hate the Snyder cut. I didn't see either, so I don't want to form an opinion on it because I literally haven't seen it, and I'm sure if I watched it, I'd probably be biased. But I am pretty like opinionated about movies. It makes it hard for me to. I have a friend who, interestingly, is also named Jared, and he likes the worst movies. He just loves the like. He's like, I saw this movie. It was pretty good. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll check it out. I check it out. It is garbage. and then and then I don't want to be like, hey man, your taste in movies is garbage. But he's always just like, I don't know. It just becomes weird because he's like, hey, I saw Get Out, and I thought this about it, and then I saw Us, and I thought this about it. I'm just like, you missed all the symbolism. You missed all of this. Like, there's just so many like things where I'm just like, there was beauty in this scene because of like this allegory, and there was beauty in that scene because of this thing, and like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And to him, like, it just didn't have enough Michael Bay in it. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like,
I
but
mean, that's
some people that's not what they want, right? And I'm not trying to be some movie hipster like, oh, everything I watch has to have nuance and like everything I watch is, Battle for Algiers and 400 Blows and like all these art school. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just like, hey, like I want,
I've seen Battle for Algiers. It's a pretty good movie.
yeah,
From Flint
like,
Public Library.
wow, that's a great public library. I worked at that library for like 5 years.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I started working there when I was 10 years old, so I guess that works. It's a great library. Shout out FPL.
Laws were broken.
I don't know if you still exist, but it was good while it lasted. I watched all the James Bond movies from there. I was also a child. Don't let your kids watch James Bond. But but anyway, yeah, I feel weird talking about movies because I feel like I'm gonna piss someone off because I'm gonna say something about 300 or I'm gonna talk about how amazing something was and everybody's like, I thought this was scarier, and I'm like, I don't care if it's scary. I care about like the message and the meaning behind it, and people are just like, oh, I just don't. I want to be entertained. Was I entertained for 2 hours or not? And I could yell like Gerard Butler, "Are you not entertained?" But maybe that's what they're yelling at me.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, some people just want the Michael Bay experience, and that's fine. I mean, there's movies for all people. I fall. Sometimes that's all I want too. I just want to shove popcorn in my mouth. But there's some things that you can't unsee, and I can't unsee two black bars to the left and to the right of the Justice League movie. So
Yeah, I um I was just talking to I mentioned I had to go to that wedding, and during the wedding at one point I somehow got separated from all the adults and I had to talk to a 15-year-old about movies that they're super into, and they were super into seeing the Fast and Furious movie,
oh my
and
god.
I haven't seen any of those, and I felt weird. I didn't, and he was like, "Yeah, but people tell me it's gonna be bad, but I bet it's gonna be really good." And I was like, you know, I bet Fast and Furious, the franchise, is made for you. You're 15 years old. You love cars. You probably like seeing the women on screen. You want to grow up to look like Vin Diesel. This is perfect for you. Like, this is the best thing for you. Like, for me, it's not. It's just not. Like, I haven't seen them because I don't think they'll be for me. And you know what? Maybe they will be for me. Maybe with the right substances, a lot of drinks, they'll be awesome. I don't know, but I haven't taken that risk yet, and I'm not looking to do that anytime soon. I just don't have time to incorporate Fast and Furious in my life.
I was talking to my friend Marcus, whom you've met, and is possibly a future friend of the pod at some point.
Nice.
Um, he, I was talking about Fast and the Furious with him, like the last phone conversation we had, and it was like basic. They're not my movies, but I was talking about like the only like non. Don't get me wrong, I like comic books, but the more I read them, the less I'm interested in mainstream stuff, and the market is like super saturated with like Marvel at this point. And I was telling him it's like the only Hollywood franchise that wasn't like a comic book at this point. And up until like 3 years ago, I hadn't even known they were like still making them. I was like, yeah, I thought they made the first two, which I saw. Like I saw the first one when I was in middle school. I like probably had my parents drive me. Maybe I was in high school, but I had to have my parents drive me to the movie theater to go see it with some people. So I saw like the first two. I knew there was a third one, but I didn't watch it. And I was like, oh, that must be it. I thought it was like that was peak Fast and the Furious.
Oh yeah,
That's what I thought. I thought that was it. There's three
yeah.
more. There's three, and then one day I'm listening to a podcast. It was like Kevin Pereira back in the day when G4 was a thing, and it's about to become a thing again because they're bringing it back. They have an active YouTube channel, um, and he was talking to like some director of the movie, and they're like, "Yeah, the seventh one was my favorite one, or whatever." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "They made more, like five more, yeah, five more of these." I was like, "I did not see that coming," and I was like super surprised. And I ended up watching.
Today, this
Yeah,
summer, Fast and Furious
yeah.
15.
Nice. And then they were talking about how it's not even like about cars anymore and like racing. It's like heist films. And I was like, I guess I'll give it a shot. And I watched one, and they were like in Brazil or something, and I was like, this is not good, and I stopped watching them. So I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just that I'm super surprised that they're at 9 at this point because they're unappealing to me, and I didn't even know they were still making them and were making money for the longest time.
Yeah, like I mean, speaking about comic book movies though, um, and films and just everything, like watching all the Marvel movies leading up to, you know, Avengers Endgame, I was for it, I guess. I was about it. But I knew people who were just like, I'm tired of comic book stuff. I can't do comic book stuff anymore. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Like I really like Spider-Man, for example, and I didn't love the first couple iterations of Spider-Man, so I totally get where you're coming from. But now with Disney Plus and the multiple Disney Plus shows that have come out, I think my most controversial take on anything really is like I just don't really care anymore. And people are like, "How do you not care about WandaVision? Didn't you like Loki?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're entertaining. It's just I'm at a different, you know, point in time in my life where I think if I was younger, if I, would watch them with a child, it would be great because I think they're made with Disney Plus in mind. They're made for all ages. But as a person who liked the Daredevil Netflix series with its hyper realistic violence, and as a person who liked the Boys on Amazon Prime, which is based on a comic, and Invincible on Amazon Prime, which is also based on a comic and also hyper violent and adult. It's just really hard for me as an adult to watch a Disney Plus thing designed for all ages and be super about it. I see the fight scene, I see the choreography, and I'm just like, this is awesome if you're 9 years old, but I'm not 9 years old, so it's just not my thing. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's poorly done. Obviously, they threw a lot of money and they have very well known and respected actors. It's just, I like the more adult themed Daredevil or Invincible or The Boys. Like those are just more my speed. They have they have jokes, and that's not to say like I need some hyper realistic violence or I need profanity or I need anything else like that. It's just those are marketed towards you know my demographic a little bit better than Marvel Plus is, and I think that shows. And so I
Yeah,
can watch Marvel Plus, but I'm also just kind of tired of watching Disney Plus. So
that's fair. I'm exhausted by Marvel in general. I mean, I grew up reading it, but I don't read Marvel comics anymore. I read
yeah.
other stuff, and we did watch Loki. That was like my favorite of the Disney Plus series. I never finished WandaVision, but Loki was fun. And we watched immediately following that. Stephanie and I just watched Preacher together, which is also same
Yeah,
creative
that was
team,
made by
same creative team,
Evan Goldberg. Yep.
same comic book creative team as well.
Oh wow.
Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, I think. So we just watched that, and that was fun. I mean, it was fun because I read the comic, and it was way different than the comic from what I could piece together from my memory. But it was
Oh wow.
adult, and it was weird and um, gory and kind of could be offensive at times. But sometimes you know but it was humorous. I mean, I found myself almost crying at the end, and I didn't get that from Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I started watching Preacher. I didn't finish it, but after watching Boys and Invincible, I was like, look, this is clearly like down the thing, like the rabbit hole for me. So let's just keep going down this rabbit hole at this point. So,
Sure.
you know,
Well, Sam, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know I've already run over probably an hour longer than I said this was going to take. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
thanks again for having me. It was great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Sure.